as you jockey for position in a new home and things get taken a little bit too far and bones get broken. It's a possibility. I think the I think what potentially it is dramatic and exciting to infer is a bit of a sexual relationship going on there, because the idea is, well, maybe we've got an adult here and maybe it gets that out of hand. It's it's possible. It's possible if this is a 33-year-old psychopathic, sociopathic, um, uh, you know, person. I don't know at this stage. Everything is a strong possibility here. Greg, what do you got? What do you think?
Yeah, let's talk about culture shock for just a minute. And so when we think of culture shock, everybody thinks of going to a new country. That's not the first time you experienced culture shock. First time you experienced culture shock is when you left your parents' house and were under the control of another adult. Because the world's changed and you suddenly had to adapt. And you adapted to that set of rules when you came home. So children who go earlier get much better at that. And children who move a lot are constantly exposed to culture shock.
Wait, but what happened to your daddy?
And that's trauma. Now, you guys hear me say all the time, the human condition is trauma. From the moment you're born, you're going to face trauma of some kind, some more horrific and some less. And as that person adapts, it might be that they adapt in a way that causes them to sit very still and to be very contained. The other thing that happens is if you're in a group home and there's a lot of ruckusing and these kids are jacking around and fighting, what's acceptable in that house may be very different than what's acceptable in your new house. So the children may be more frail, may be less frail, and you may be a little bit more aggressive, a little more physical. So let's take that into account first, because that's a big part of this person's upbringing, assuming that it's not just an outright lie that she came at 33. There are three things I'm going to look at very quickly. None of them are smoking guns, but they're important. She's got a furrowing of her brow. She talks about how many families she was with, and then she drops to emotional access. Well, if I live with 30 families, it might be the case. Some people get hard, some people get softer. It depends on how that person deals with that. But then her brow goes up in uncertainty and request for privilege. She addresses what's going on. When she's talking about this wrestling piece, maybe this is what happened, is she pushed hard enough that these people are like, she's too aggressive for our family, and they found a way for her to go out. But listen, her voice notes when she says wrestling, she does that rocking back and forth with her hand, which I think is, you might think it's this, you might think it's that. But then I felt like when she was doing that and shaking her hand, she's fishing for approval in calling it wrestling. Whereas the people might have said, you're a brute, you're beating up the child. So there's two. Third is there's a pregnant pause right after a dead open pause outside of her normal baseline after she says, I was trying to break his arm. And she breaks eye contact into emotion, but no tears, nothing sad. It could mean she's shopping for an answer in degrees and trying to figure out what's okay. Don't know, but she is a product of her environment. And then when she says, I don't know what it was with him, there's an eye contact change and a cadence change. Those three things make me think whether it's a big deal or something else, she contributed in some way or feels like she contributed in some way to the reason she was ejected in those houses. Now, if you're a child, children feel guilty for lots of things that they're not responsible for. Don't know. We'll wait and see what we find. Scott, what do you got?
All right, let's pretend like we're hunting for a con, and we're looking for the con in this story, or for that person to be kind. One thing to look for is something that just doesn't sound right. And sometimes when you're dealing with a con, one of their tools is manipulation of emotions. And they can be trying to manipulate empathy or sympathy or fear, whatever it is. And in this case, in my opinion, she would be trying to manipulate the empathy